Welcome back to English Compass. You hear a question in English, your brain understands it, but instead of answering, you start a hidden process. You switch to your native language, you build the reply, you translate it word by word, you check the grammar, you worry about pronunciation, and finally, you speak. By the time you finish, the conversation has moved on. You feel slow, you feel exhausted, you feel like you're running a race with heavy shoes. If this is your daily reality, you are not alone, and you are not failing. You are simply using a mental shortcut that was never designed for real-time communication. Translation feels safe, it feels accurate, but it costs you something invisible: mental energy, natural rhythm, and conversational flow. 2 years ago, I made a quiet decision. I stopped treating English like a code to decode. I started treating it like a space to inhabit. I trained my brain to bypass my native language. I built direct connections between meaning and English. It was uncomfortable, it required patience, but it changed how I think, speak, and listen forever. Today, I will share that mindset shift with you. I will explain why translation traps your progress. I will show you how your brain can learn to think in English directly, and I will give you a clear daily system to practice it. Before we begin, take a slow breath. Close your eyes for 3 seconds. Say this out loud. I do not need to translate to be understood. I will connect meaning directly to English. Good. Let's step into the shift. The hidden cost of translation. Let's examine what actually happens in your brain when you translate. You hear English. Your auditory cortex processes the sounds. Then your language center switches tracks. It searches for the equivalent in your native tongue. It builds a mental bridge. You understand the message. Then you reverse the process. You take your native thought. You map it to English vocabulary. You arrange the grammar. You monitor the output. You speak. This entire cycle takes 2 to 4 seconds. In written communication, 4 seconds is invisible. In spoken conversation, 4 seconds is a lifetime. It creates hesitation. It breaks rhythm. It signals uncertainty to the listener. And worst of all, it drains your cognitive battery. I remember a specific moment that exposed this cost. I was attending a virtual workshop. The speaker asked a simple question. What's the biggest challenge you're facing with your current project? I knew the answer. I had lived it. But my brain defaulted to translation. I started constructing the sentence in my native language. I searched for the English equivalent of a specific technical term. I debated between 2 prepositions. I worried about verb tense. 3 seconds passed. 4. The host moved to the next person. I smiled. I nodded. I typed my answer in the chat. But internally, I felt defeated. I had the knowledge. I had the vocabulary. But my mental process blocked my voice. That evening, I realized something important. Translation is not a learning tool. It is a processing delay. It keeps you 1 step behind the conversation. It turns speaking into editing. And editing while speaking is impossible to do smoothly. Why do we translate so naturally? Because early language education trains us to pair words. Hauskichal, casa. Run, has, kora. Think, pensa. We are taught that language is a dictionary, not a system. We are rewarded for accuracy, not for flow. So our brain builds a habitual loop. Hear, translate, verify, speak. The loop feels safe. But safety is not the same as fluency. Fluency is not about knowing every word. Fluency is about reducing the distance between thought and expression. When you translate, you add distance. You insert a middleman. The middleman slows everything down. Vocabulary in context. Listen to these 4 phrases. They will frame today's discussion. Cognitive load, the amount of mental effort required to process information. Mental bridge, the invisible switch between your native language and English processing delay. The time lost when your brain translates instead of responding directly. Conversational flow, the natural rhythm of back and forth communication without hesitation. Repeat after me. Cognitive load. Mental bridge. Processing delay. Conversational flow. Keep these in mind. They explain why you feel tired after English conversations, even when you understand everything. Grammar focus, contrast, and concession structures. Notice how I compare ideas. Translation feels safe, whereas direct thinking feels unfamiliar. Accuracy is important, but flow matters more in real time. Even though translation seems logical, it actually blocks communication. We use contrast connectors to show relationships between ideas. They make your speech sound more advanced and organized. Repeat after me. I used to translate everything, whereas now I think in chunks. Perfection is tempting, but clarity is more useful. Even though I make mistakes, I keep the conversation moving. Excellent. You are already practicing higher-level sentence patterns in context. The mindset shift from code to context. The turning point came when I asked myself a different question. Instead of asking, how can I translate faster? I asked, what if I don't translate at all? It sounded impossible. My brain resisted. But I began to notice something. When I was truly relaxed, when I wasn't preparing for a test or judging myself, English words appeared without translation. If I saw rain, I thought, rain. Not the word in my native language, then the English equivalent. Just rain. If I felt tired, I thought exhausted. Directly, instantly. This proved a crucial truth. Your brain is already capable of thinking in English. It just hasn't been given permission to do it consistently. Translation is a habit, not a requirement. And habits can be replaced. The mindset shift required 3 fundamental changes. Shift 1. From word matching to meaning mapping. Languages do not translate perfectly. Concepts carry different cultural weight. For example, the English word actually does not mean currently in many languages. It means in reality, or contrary to what you might think. When you translate word by word, you miss the nuance. When you map meaning, you absorb the function. You stop asking, what is the exact equivalent, and start asking, what is this idea trying to do? Shift 2. From accuracy. First, to communication. First, translation demands perfection. It says, if I cannot say it exactly, I should not say it at all. But real conversation rewards participation. Native speakers use filler words. They restart sentences. They say, wait, let me phrase that differently. They prioritize getting the message across over grammatical precision. When you accept that communication is the goal, not perfection, translation loses its power. You stop editing in your head. You start expressing. Shift 3. From observer to participant. When you translate, you stand outside the language. You analyze it. You judge it. When you think directly in English, you step inside it. You experience it. You stop treating English as a subject to study. You start treating it as a medium to live through. This shift reduces anxiety. It replaces fear with curiosity. It turns hesitation into exploration. I began practicing this shift through a simple daily exercise. I called it meaning over label. When I encountered a new word, I did not write its native translation. I wrote a short English definition, an example sentence, and a mental image. If the word was frustrated, I wrote, feeling stuck because something isn't working. Example, the computer froze again. I felt frustrated. I pictured a frozen screen, crossed arms, heavy sigh. The word attached to the concept, not to another language. Interactive practice, meaning mapping. Pause the video. Think of a recent emotion or situation. Do not translate it. Describe it in 3 short English sentences. Focus on the feeling, the action, the result. Example. I missed the bus. I stood in the rain. I felt annoyed but calm. Say it out loud. Notice how your brain works directly with English. No middleman. Just meaning. Good. You are training a new neural pathway. Vocabulary and context. Nuance. A subtle difference in meaning or feeling. Communication first, prioritizing understanding over grammatical perfection. Neural pathway. The mental connection that strengthens with repeated use. Ambiguity tolerance. The ability to stay calm when you don't understand every word. Repeat after me. Nuance. Communication first. Neural pathway. Ambiguity tolerance. Your brain is adapting. You are building tolerance for uncertainty. That is where fluency grows. Grammar note. Participle phrases for natural flow. Notice how I use phrases like feeling stuck, I decided to wait. Standing in the rain, I realized I was calm. These are participle clauses. They combine two ideas smoothly. They are common in B1-B2 speech and writing. They make your English sound more natural and connected. Repeat after me. Feeling tired, I chose to rest. Listening carefully, I caught the main idea. Thinking clearly, I responded without hesitation. Perfect. You are practicing advanced structure in a practical context. The rewiring process for practical techniques. A mindset shift is powerful, but it needs structure. You cannot simply stop translating overnight. You must replace the habit with new behaviors. I developed 4 techniques that rewire your brain gradually. Each one targets a different stage of the translation loop. Technique 1. Direct image word. Association. When you hear or read an English word, do not search for your native equivalent. Close your eyes. Picture the object, action, or emotion. Let the English word attach directly to the image. If you encounter breeze, picture leaves moving gently, cool air on skin, open window. Do not translate, associate. This bypasses the mental bridge. It trains your brain to store English visually and experientially, not linguistically. Technique 2. Chunk-based internal monologue. Native speakers do not think in isolated words. They think in ready-made phrases. Instead of constructing sentences from scratch, I began memorizing functional chunks. To be honest, I'd say, that depends on, I'm leaning toward, let me think about that for a second. I used these in my silent narration. When I needed to respond, I pulled a chunk, not a single word. Chunks reduce cognitive load. They sound natural. They give you time to organize thoughts without translating. Technique 3. The good enough. Output. Rule translation demands exactness. Direct thinking accepts approximation. I started allowing myself to use simpler words when the perfect term wasn't available. Instead of searching for exhausted, I used very tired. Instead of hesitant, I used not completely sure. This is not a downgrade. It is a communication strategy. Your goal is to keep the conversation alive. Precision can come later. Fluency requires forward motion. Technique 4. Scenario immersion. Thinking in context. Instead of practicing random sentences, I began thinking in complete scenarios. I imagined ordering coffee, asking for directions, explaining a problem, giving feedback. I ran through the dialogue in my head entirely in English. I included pauses, filler words, and recovery phrases. I did not script perfect answers. I simulated real interaction. This trained my brain to expect English in context, not in isolation. Speaking practice. Chunk integration. Listen carefully. I will give you a situation. Then I will give you a natural chunk response. Repeat both. Feel how the chunk carries your thought forward. Situation. Someone asks your opinion on a plan. Chunk. Actually, I see where you're coming from, but I'd suggest we adjust the timeline. Situation. You need time to think. Chunk. That's a good point. Let me weigh the options for a second. Again. Clear. Steady. Actually, I see where you're coming from, but I'd suggest we adjust the timeline. That's a good point. Let me weigh the options for a second. Good. These chunks will become your mental shortcuts. They replace translation with flow. Grammar focus, conditionals for hypothetical thinking. When you imagine scenarios, you use conditionals naturally. If I need more time, I'll say so. If they ask for details, I'll share the main points first. If I forget a word, I'll rephrase it simply. Conditionals prepare your brain for real-time flexibility. They reduce panic by giving you fallback options. Repeat after me. If I get stuck, I'll pause and breathe. If I don't know the exact word, I'll describe it. If the conversation moves fast, I'll use a bridge phrase. Excellent. You are building mental safety nets. Safety nets reduce translation. The breakthrough and real-world test. The true test came unexpectedly. I was in a small group discussion. 3 people were speaking quickly. The topic was unfamiliar. My old habit would have triggered immediately. Translate everything, fall behind, stay quiet. But this time, I let go. I listened for keywords. I mapped meaning. I waited for my turn. When asked, I did not construct a perfect answer. I used a chunk. I spoke simply. I allowed myself to pause. I said, "To be honest, I'm still processing the details, but what stands out to me is the timeline. If we adjust the first phase, the rest might flow better." It was not academic English. It was not flawless, but it was direct. It was timely. It kept the conversation moving. The group nodded. Someone replied, "That makes sense. Let's look at phase 1. I had contributed, I had participated, I had not translated, I had thought. That moment confirmed the shift. Translation is not necessary for understanding. It is a crutch that your brain learned early and never put down. When you remove the crutch, you wobble at first, but soon your legs strengthen, your balance improves, your movement becomes natural. I also noticed a secondary effect. My listening comprehension improved dramatically. Why? Because when you stop translating, your ears stop waiting for your native language. They start catching English directly. You recognize rhythm, you predict structure, you fill gaps with context instead of panic. Listening becomes active, not passive. Occasionally, translation still happens. If I encounter a highly technical term or a deeply cultural reference, my brain reaches for the shortcut. But it no longer controls me. I recognize it. I acknowledge it. I gently return to direct thinking. The loop is broken. The habit is rewired. Vocabulary in context. Mental crutch, a dependency that feels helpful but actually limits growth. Active listening, processing meaning in real time without switching languages. Contextual guessing, using surrounding information to understand unknown words. Rewired habit, an old pattern replaced through consistent new behavior. Repeat after me. Mental crutch. Active listening. Contextual guessing. Rewired habit. You are no longer decoding English, you are experiencing it. Grammar note. Mixed tenses for reflection plus. Narrative. Notice how I blend past experience with present realization. I used to translate everything, but now I recognize the shortcut. My brain reached for translation, yet I chose a different path. Listening was passive, whereas now it feels active. Mixed tense reflection shows maturity in English. It connects past struggle to present growth. Repeat after me. I relied on translation, but I trust direct thinking now. I felt exhausted, yet I feel lighter today. The conversation was fast, so I used chunks to keep up. Perfect. You're practicing advanced narrative structure naturally. Your daily rewiring framework. Mindset becomes reality through routine. Here is your daily rewiring framework. It takes 15 minutes. It targets translation at 3 levels. Input, processing, output. Follow it consistently for 21 days. You will feel the shift. Phase 1. 5 minutes of direct input. Listen to a short audio or read a short text. Do not translate. Listen, read once for overall meaning. Pause twice. Ask yourself, what is the core idea? Answer in 1 English sentence. Speak it out loud. Do not check vocabulary. Trust context. This trains your brain to extract meaning without switching languages. Phase 2. 5 minutes of chunk monologue. Choose a simple topic. Speak out loud for 5 minutes. Use at least 3 functional chunks. Allow pauses. Allow rephrasing. Do not stop to find perfect words. Keep the flow. Record yourself if possible. Listen back once. Notice where you hesitated. Replace those moments with a bridge phrase next time. Phase 3. 5 minutes of meaning review. Open your notebook. Write 3 English words or phrases you encountered today. Do not write native translations. Write 1. A short English definition. 2. A personal example. 3. A mental image or feeling. Example: overwhelm, too many tasks at once. Example: emails, calls, deadline. Image: heavy box, slow steps. This cements direct association. It removes the translation layer. Total time: 15 minutes, daily, consistent, targeted. This system replaces decoding with experiencing. It trains your brain to think in English, not about English. Daily template practice. Pause the video. Fill this template out loud. Today's core idea was. One chunk I used was. One word I connected directly was. Say it twice. Clear. Confident. Yours. Grammar focus. Modals for advice and self-regulation. Notice how I structure guidance. You should trust context. You can allow pauses. You must keep the flow. Modals express recommendation, possibility, and necessity. They are essential for self-directed practice. Repeat after me. I should practice directly every day. I can use chunks when I hesitate. I must accept approximation over perfection. Excellent. You are building self-regulation in English. Your 14-day direct thinking challenge. You do not need to translate to be fluent. You need to trust your brain. Translation was a training wheel. It helped you start. But training wheels are meant to be removed. When you take them off, you wobble, you fall, you adjust. And then you ride. Thinking directly in English is not a talent. It is a practiced pathway. It grows through daily returns, through accepting approximation, through prioritizing communication over correction, through replacing the mental bridge with direct meaning. I invite you to a 14-day challenge. 15 minutes daily, follow the rewiring framework, track your days. Notice the hesitation shrink. Notice the flow increase. Notice English become a space you inhabit, not a puzzle you solve. When you are ready, comment below. Day 1. I drop the translation crutch. I think directly. I speak freely. I will read every comment. I will reply to your progress. This channel is not a museum of perfect grammar. It is a laboratory for real communication. And you belong here. Subscribe to English Compass for more honest stories, graded listening practice, and step-by-step fluency systems. Turn on notifications. Your next breakthrough is not in a longer study session. It is in your next direct thought. Before you go, take a slow breath. Repeat this final line with me. I do not translate. I connect. I think in English. I speak with flow. I trust the process. See you tomorrow. Keep practicing. Keep thinking directly. The language is yours.